Hey everybody, it's Mike Sullivan with Building Better Communities. Today we have a really cool guest, and he's been doing this for 3 decades, so he has a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, and he's going to share it with you today. His name is Marc Jacobson, and Marc is in San Antonio, Texas. And Marc, thanks, man, for carving out time with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, yes, sir. And we were chatting a little bit before the podcast, and um, you have a cool journey. And would you be open to share that? Like, how do you get your start in this line of work?
Sure. Well, my start in this line of work actually started long before I was working. I was as an interesting kid growing up in that I was interested in transportation from a very young age, specifically things like traffic signals, signs, and markings. And when I was a young kid growing up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I would actually go out in the neighborhood and walk the streets and walk up to the traffic signals. And they had old electromechanical traffic signal controllers back then that you could stand there at the cabinet and listen to them click as they would change from green, yellow to red. And I at an early age, I just became really fascinated with, how do they know how long each, green should be and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then like when we would go on family trips and driving around, I would pay attention to all the signs and things like that that I saw. So that was kind of how I got my interest in it. And later on, through career day events and things at school, I learned that the person that did that work was a civil engineer. And so I sort of steered my journey to go down that path and become a civil engineer. And was able to get after high school, I was able to get my bachelor's and master's degrees from Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas, and went on to a variety of jobs. I started off doing research at the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, but eventually kind of transitioned more into what I do today. First, I spent some time at the city of Dallas here in Texas, working on their traffic signals. And after another brief stint with TTI doing research, I worked a little bit at the Texas Department of Transportation as the assistant district traffic engineer for the San Antonio area. And then about a little over 20 years ago, I came to work here for the city of San Antonio. And I started off doing their traffic signals. And today I'm the assistant director of public works for traffic and the city traffic engineer.
That is cool. Yeah, that it's so neat, Mark, is like when you were a little kid and you were by the control box and you can hear the clicking, and then that curiosity, like, well, how do they do the timing? Where do they detect it? How does this even work? Like, that's really cool. And then on road trips too, how that really piqued your curiosity. That's awesome. Was that mostly in Philly then? That all happened?
Yeah, a lot of I think the roots of that started in Philly, and then when it's now being in San Antonio and in Texas for so long, it's much different because I mean you can drive for a full day and still be in Texas, but going up there, I mean you could go to New York, you could go to Washington D.C. I mean there were a lot of places where you could go in a relatively short amount of time and see a lot of different things. So it was really a great way to kind of see how people did the same thing but did it differently.
Yeah, because it's so condensed. So you can see
Right.
that's a perfect environment for you to grow up in like that. That's awesome. I get the Texas. You can drive a whole day. I did that when I moved from um, when we're yeah, no, Chicago to California, and just it was Texas for one of the 4 days. It was Texas, 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 Texas. Great state. It was just yeah, it's enormous. And what's your favorite part of the 30 years you've been doing this, and what just gets you excited to get out of bed and go like, I really am making a difference in this community, and what are like the top one or two things that you love about your job?
Well, I think by far, I mean, the favorite thing about the job is kind of like that immediate sense of being able to fix things or
Mm.
address problems. We get requests for things all the time. Can you look at this? This isn't working, or I want a new traffic light here, or I don't. I need a sign because there's some sort of issue. So you get these requests, and in this job, you're able to go out and look at it and determine, is this something that needs to be changed or addressed? And if it is, you can make that change right away.
Mm.
And a lot of jobs, it's, like, let's say you're designing a skyscraper or something like that. I mean, that takes years to do and then many, many more years to build. So it's like it takes forever to kind of see the fruit of your labor. Whereas with this, it's sort of like instant gratification.
Mm.
You can address those problems quickly. And really, it kind of leads into the other piece of it, which is really being able to kind of like make someone's day in a way by being able to solve their problems. The What's interesting about being a traffic engineer is you're working on things that, it's not like just affecting someone else. I mean, it affects you, it affects your family. I mean, maybe sometimes not directly because maybe you're dealing with something in the neighborhood that's maybe far from where you live or things like that. But you're dealing with the same types of things that, I have to drive to work every day. So I experience traffic and congestion. And then, I have my wife and kids, my parents, my family. I mean, they're all out on the roads. And so, it's making things safer for, this person requesting it is making it safer for everybody, including the people closest to me. So I think that's a kind of a unique thing, because if you're a doctor that's specializing in some sort of condition or whatever, you may not have anybody close to you that has that condition or whatever. But in this case, I'm able to work on things that could have a direct impact on my family. And then, kind of getting back to the people that are making these requests, being able, first of all, I think a lot of times when someone's calling the city, for example, and they're reporting an issue, you can tell sometimes when you just call them back that they're like shocked that there's a real person out there
Mm.
that's actually looking at what they're saying. I mean, and then just having a conversation with them, um, makes them say, okay, well, this is interesting that there's someone out there that's taking the time to listen to what I have to say. And then if we're able to go ahead and implement something or do something that addresses their concern, the overwhelming like sense of gratitude that you get from those folks when you're able to tell them, okay, this is what we were able to do. Um, I think it just makes you feel good. And, you have to understand that, I always remind the staff that, someone when they report something, it may not be earth-shattering of a problem or something, but they're taking the time to report it, and it's an issue to them. So,
Yeah.
we have to treat them with respect, treat everybody with respect, and understand that, it's an issue to them, and so we need to take a look at it and see, what we can do to address it.
You know, it's so cool what I'm learning about you, Mark, and what's awesome, and there's no mistake that you are the leader where you're at. You're a servant leader. You're truly serving. You know, that's beautiful. That's because you're coming at it with empathy because you drive the same roads, your wife's on the same roads, your kids, all of you, your whole family's there. So you have a lot of empathy, and that I think is so powerful. And that seems to and tell me if I'm wrong, but motivating why you do what you do. You know, a big part of it is increasing the safety for your family, for other families, and then even encouraging the community. It sounds like to reach out and have a conversation. You know, you're collaborating together. How do we make this neighborhood even better? And if it's a big deal to you, then we want to help. Like that, I've never heard that before, and I love that. I just think that's really a special quality about you and what you're doing. So thank you for coming at it with that servant leadership heart posture. That's really, really cool. So yeah, I just thank you. That's awesome. That's a really really great way to lead. And you know, this is off the cuff, but if it's okay, how would someone, if someone's like, I really like this guy, Marc Jacobson, how do I'm in Kansas or I'm in Iowa or I don't live in Texas, but how would I get a hold of someone like Mark in my city where I've noticed whatever it is, this kind of issue? Do they call the city? Do they ask for the traffic operations engineer? How would someone get a hold of someone like you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think, a lot of times I would suggest starting like with the website for whatever agency, because it does vary throughout the country, like
Mm,
who's responsible for whatever it is you're reporting. I'm very familiar with who's responsible here in San Antonio and in Texas specifically, but in some places like it could be the state, it could be your city government. If you're in a city, it could be the county.
mm,
Um, and so maybe starting there with the website could be a good start. And a lot of people are familiar with 911, to call for emergencies. Well, 311 is the reserve number pretty much throughout the country to
mm.
report non-emergencies. So
311.
311. And
Oh,
so
cool.
not everybody has implemented a 311, but in some cases, that would be a good place to start because you could call it and see who answers. And that may be able to point you in the right direction. But I think, what I have seen is, yeah, if you reach out to your folks, it may take, be patient because it may take a couple of calls and people trying to get you to the right spot. But for the most part, I think the folks that are on the other end of that call, they want to try to get you to the right spot.
Yeah.
So, I think don't hesitate to reach out because there will be somebody there who's, that's their job every day is to try to figure out how to make that better.
Yeah, I love that. That is so cool. 311. Who would have known? That's awesome. And you know, this one, I'm curious. Over the decades you've experienced problem solving, running a team, making the community safer, reducing congestion, like when you go to work and when I go to work. What are some areas where you'd like to see the gaps? Maybe if there's a bridge to be shortened, or maybe like a least favorite part of your career, if there is one.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. You know, I think it it would be great if everybody sort of controlled themselves when driving and
Mm.
understood that we're all in it together when you're out there on the road. And
Yeah.
because a lot of crashes and things that do occur, there's always, for the most part, there's always somebody at fault. I mean, a lot of times you'll hear traffic engineers today, we use that term crashes versus the term accident because, you
Mm.
know, accident sort of implies, oh, it just sort of happened and there was nobody at fault. But most of the time with a crash, there is somebody at fault. Now, I mean, it doesn't mean they set out that day to create a crash, but, I think if everybody could um, put down their phones, try to drive less distracted and, understand that okay, so you may be going, the speed limit on the roadway you're on is 65, and maybe there's somebody in front of you going 50 or something, and you're getting frustrated that, the time difference at the end isn't going to make a big difference. Try to relax, drive safely. And I think if everybody could sort of do that, it would help folks like me do our jobs a little bit better and help get everybody to where they need to go safely. And always be on the lookout for pedestrians, bicyclists, motorcycles.
Yeah.
When you're driving in a neighborhood street, you see a kid down the street,
Mm.
go slowly because even if they're on the sidewalk, you have no idea what that kid's going to do as the
Right.
car gets closer. And so
Yeah.
just things like that, I think would help. Is how everybody can contribute every day to trying to make the road safer. Um, I think, in general, the kind of like the least favorite part of my job kind of goes right hand in hand with my favorite part, so the good thing is being able to solve problems. I think the least favorite part is when you really can't solve a problem. I mean, then there's a lot of situations like that where
Mm,
and it can be for a variety of reasons. I mean, take congestion. Y- every day, I think people see this all over the country where roads are getting more crowded,
mm,
and not everybody has a great choice that they can make to choose to take mass transit or maybe to ride a bike or do something other than sit in a vehicle it's stuck in traffic, and that congestion gets worse each day. And sometimes these roads are built where there really isn't any room to make them bigger or other things, and so we're limited sometimes in solutions that we can provide. um and then on the safety side for me, I mean, there have been a lot of times part of the role of my job sometimes is I have to go to court if there's a crash that happened in the city or something like that. And in whether or not that piece happens, but just looking at crashes that happen, especially crashes that involve fatalities,
mm,
even when like I know there wasn't really anything I could have done, each one of those really hits home, and it's like it takes a little part of you because you're like, well, is there something that could have been done differently or
mm.
something like that? Because just you definitely feel for the families that are impacted. We all see those stories on the news and things like that when they happen, but it's not just a 5 second story that you see on the news. I mean, the impacts of those things go on forever, and even when there's not a fatality, you can have folks that are injured, and it just changes their life. So yeah, I mean, having to go through some of that and experience those things and understand that while we definitely want to try to eliminate serious injuries and fatalities, when they still occur, I mean that's definitely something that can get you down.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if there's someone that's maybe in middle school or high school, or they're at a control box and they're going, how does this thing work, this is cool, or they're on a road trip and they're doing what you were doing at that age, what would you say to him or her to encourage them to to go to kind of follow your path? Or someone that just started, what would be some words of encouragement?
Well, I think the number one thing is don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, when you're first starting out, if you have like an interest in a topic
Mm,
and you're like, maybe maybe you're in high school or just starting off in college, and it's like, well, I'm kind of interested in this profession or I've seen someone that do this. Try to find someone that does what you do and talk to them and ask them about their journey. So, that can help. Reach out to like get in school, like your guidance counselors and folks like that to try to get you on the right path. And then, understand that there are always going to be bumps along the way. There could be a class that, maybe isn't your best in school, and there could be other things that, kind of maybe detour you off that path, but don't give up, don't get discouraged, and keep trying. And then, don't be afraid to, well, really work on your communication
yeah,
skills. This is
yeah,
one of the things when I've talked to middle school and high school and elementary school students during career days. We always talk about engineering, and the kids are really quick to say, oh, well, if you want to be an engineer, math and science are really key. And I'm like, yes, but you have to really work on your communication skills because no matter what job you go into, if you cannot, you could have the greatest idea on earth, but if you're not able to share that idea with somebody, it's not going to go anywhere. So you have to feel comfortable talking with people and things, and that goes right along with, like I said, asking questions and things like that. I mean, you can't be afraid that there's the old mantra, there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's true. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? If you ask a question and maybe you look a little silly, it's okay. I mean, you'll move on from that. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and try new things.
That's awesome. And Marc Jacobson, thank you, sir, for sharing your heart for what you do, your experience, your wisdom, and just thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Sure, and thank you again for having me.
Wherever people go, one signal at a time, one project, one design, making tomorrow brighter than today. They're building better communities, keeping families safe on every street, helping traffic move, helping dreams come true, making life a little easier for me and you. And